Alright, so this is video number 5. I'm going to be talking again with every video. I'm going to start out with this graph, and I'm going to explain it briefly because I have several times already. And on this video, I'm going to be talking about the molad. It's a Hebrew word meaning birth. It typically refers to the birth of the new moon, and the Hebrew or biblical calendar system, in which this this period right here comes into play with the molad, or the birthing of the new moon within the calendar system. All right, so just to start, this chart I have here, it consists of 25,920 days. This is a smaller scale than what's taking place in the heavens. It's oftentimes referred to as the Great Year, and essentially what it is, it's this period of time, the axis of the Earth, or the pole, that's how long it takes to complete a circle. Okay, and so this period of time, it's also related to a circle, because that's how long it takes for the pole or axis of the Earth to make that loop. All right, and this period of time, or this last great year of days, again I'm using days here instead of the years. It's starting at the Nuremberg executions. That was on 10/16/1946. And the biblical days, they cover 2 Gregorian days, so it's important to keep in mind that this was also 10/16/1946 at sunset. It was the 7th day of Sukkot. The 8th day, or the last great day, as it's called, or the 8th day assembly, started at sunset on 10/16/1946. So considering what happened here, the biblical dates and the importance of a closing of time is really what you have here is really a strong indication of a closing of time because of what happened. And the biblical dates strongly suggest to me that what we have here is a marker in time that goes forward, and it's consistent with what's called a great year, but just at a smaller scale. And it consists of 864 months. Again, these numbers are very significant, and I'll be getting into this number in more detail with regards to volumes, whether it be the New Testament consists of 27 books. It's also, you could use the word volume, because you have a collection of books that consist of a total of 27. So there's 27 volumes that are contained within the New Testament. And I think what we'll see here with weights and measures and the counting of the Omer, you're going to see some very interesting things that come out with regards to this, or the fractals of this, and I'll be going over that too as well. All right, so just to I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit because I have a lot to talk about. All right, so again, within this time frame, okay, this 25,920 days that starts between the 7th day of Sukkot and the 8th day. All right, it ends on Sukkot. That would be 10/3/2017, 10/4/2017. Again, the biblical dates oftentimes cover 2 Gregorian dates, so if you see 2 dates, that's just kind of a reflection of the way the 2 different calendar systems work. So what I believe we have here is a marker. Okay, is a marker for the start of the tribulation. Okay, and I've talked about this already. And so what I believe that this Grand Cardinal Cross on 4/22/23, it's roughly the same time as the third quarter moon. What it represents is it represents the start of the tribulation. Whether the tribulation lasts 3.5 years or 3.5 biblical years, or it's actually indeed 7, I believe this is the start. All right, this is the marker for it. Because once you back off 1,260 days from the end, coming starting here at the Nuremberg executions, taking it all the way out to its 25,920 day period, counting back 1,260 days or 42 months. This is exactly where it takes you. It takes you to the time when the Grand Cardinal Cross will be in nearly perfect alignment, or as close as it's ever going to get, with all 4 planets at 13 degrees of their cardinal sign. Again, 13 biblically represents rebellion, chaos, and so what you see a lot of people writing about that indeed seems to fit within the biblical meaning of 13. Okay, people who are observant and have some kind of understanding, I guess. Even though I don't put a lot of merit into astrologers, but they seem to. It seems to be consistent with the number 13 and what it means within the context of the Bible, and see how it's nestled between these 2 eclipses. This is the start of the Tetrad on Passover, this lunar eclipse. It just fits nicely in there, and you see this a lot in some of the charts I'm going to show. Is that you'll see, a lot of significant events or the timing of them. You'll either have something similar to this, where you have 2 eclipses. This is a fortnight between these 2 eclipses, this lunar eclipse and a solar. It's 14.77 days, and you often see this is reappearing of 2 eclipses, with the date in the middle actually being the significant date, and I'll be explaining that on some other charts. And so within the context of this great year, I broke it down into its divine ratio, or phi, if you will. And in doing so, you have 2 periods, okay, which represent, the larger side would be 222.5 degrees, because again we're dealing with a circle. Okay, it's just 72, because at this scale, every 72 days equals 1 degree. Just divide 72 into this period, and this gives you your degrees. And this is the months, biblical months, and here this would be what would be called the golden section within a great year. And within this great year, within the golden section, what splits this time is the Grand Cardinal Cross. You have 42 months going this way, and back to the date of the phi proportion or split, you have what amounts to 8,640 days. It represents a third of a circle. It's 288 months. It represents a third of the overall time. And so another aspect here that I believe is important, because symbolically what this represents, because what we're dealing with here is that the Bible talks about the dragon pulling a third of the stars out of heaven, okay, and then it talks about a war in heaven, and it talks about 42 months. All right, so I don't think there's a dragon flying around with a long tail that's pulling stars out of the heaven. I think it's symbolic of Draco, or the dragon, and I know others, as David Flynn and others have wrote about this, but I've never seen anybody break it down like this, and I believe it's Very, very important. And so symbolically, what you have here at a smaller scale is a third of the stars. You have, you know, the dragon whose tail sweeps across that circle. Okay, this is at a smaller scale, but symbolically, that's what you have here. And symbolically, with the Grand Cardinal Cross, you could equate that to a war in heaven. Yeah, with the planets at 13 degrees, with just the symbology of what's happening here, you could equate this to a war in heaven. Okay, I'm not saying this is the date of that, but symbolically, you could absolutely, you can see it here, is that you have a third of time or a third of the stars that represents Draco's tail, or the dragon. You have the Grand Cardinal Cross, which symbolically you could see as a war in heaven. And you definitely have a very unique period of time coming off here. That's 42 months or 1,260 days. That fits within this time frame. And this period can also be broken down at a broken down into its seasons. And I've done that here, starting again at the Nuremberg trial. Each season, it has 6,480 days to it, 90 degrees, 216 months. And here's all the dates that correspond. And so by using these periods of time, you can see what happens to the Gregorian calendar. The days float a little bit. If you're starting at 10/16, then you kind of 13, 8, 12, and it stays at 12, and then it goes to 11, 10. So the days kind of drift a little bit using this period, but it's accurate and represents what's going on in the heavens. Things are going backwards. It's a precession, and it really jumps out here on the Gregorian calendar, using the same period just at a smaller scale. And again, we're starting at the Nuremberg trials. Libra entered its sidereal on that very day. Symbolically, it has over time represented justice, and I would say that's certainly what took place with the Nuremberg executions. There was some measure of justice that was carried out, and I think it's very interesting. And so I'm going to be speaking now about what's called the molad. All right, this all plays in, okay, in my opinion. Okay, the molad is a Hebrew word meaning birth. It generically refers to time which the new moon is born, and the context, it could refer to the actual or mean astronomical lunar conjunction. So I'm going to be talking about this because it has a lot to do with this. Okay, and I'm going to jump right to it here. The molad interval is an exact fraction of 29, and here's your fraction right here. And here you start seeing the 25,920 showing up. But it implies an underlying a fixed lunar cycle of 25,920 months. Okay, and it's broken down then into the full months or short months. Okay, but essentially this within the biblical calendar system, or the Hebrew calendar, the whole underlying lunar cycle revolves around this. Okay, this is 25,920 months. This is days, which represents what's taking place in the heavens in years. So we have a things going on at different scale, but they revolve around the same numbers. Okay, and this is very much, and I've showed it in other videos, and I'll be showing it again. Is that even when it's broken down, even to in a smaller scale, you can use 864 days, and you can progress the moon. You can move forward with it 864 days, every 864 days, and I'll be going over a couple of those charts as well. So I wanted to show that the molad, or the birth of the new moon within the biblical, or I would say probably more the Hebrew calendar system, is the way it's devised, is that this is your common denominator right here. And you also see that every day is broken down into units. As there's 60 seconds in a minute, but within this system, okay, every day consists of 25,920 units. And again, it's just another smaller scale. And that's how it's broken down. As Yeshua was on the cross for 6 hours. Of course, 6 hours is a quarter of the day, but when broken down into units, it represents a season. It's a smaller scale. Okay, 6 hours. When converted into 25,920 units for every day, it represents a season. Okay, it's a smaller scale. All right, and I'm going to be talking. I'm going to skip this and going to. I'm going to go to the counting of the Omer. All right, the counting of the Omer is a biblical counting of a measure or volume of grain that was brought to the temple. Okay, and you count from I think it's like the second day of Passover until Pentecost. All right, and so essentially, what I've done here with the counting of the Omer, because the Omer is a unit of measure. It's here. Let's see. We're gonna go to this chart, which I just pulled this off Wikipedia, and it describes the Omer unit. And essentially, this is what I'm looking for right here. The Omer is equal to about 3.64 liters, and a liter is described as a cube. Okay, it's a volume of a cube, and so an Omer unit, 1 Omer is equal to 3.64 liters. All right, and you're going to see how on the 27th day of the counting of the Omer, how that day is very, very special when broken down and converted to imperial units. All right, it's a whole system here of things underlying that's going on that most people aren't even aware of, and specifically what happened with Israel when they were admitted to the UN. The world body accepted them as a nation. Essentially, you can say or describe it however you like. But it happened on the 27th day of the Omer. Again, the 27th day of the Omer, 1949, the year in which it happened. The 27th day of the Omer started on May 10th. All right, and it concluded at sunset on May 11th. Okay, and we're going to see how all this is tied in to what happened in 33 AD. And I'll be explaining that. So what I've done is I've converted the Omer, and hang on a second, I'm going to get some charts here if I can find them right here. Alright, so essentially 1 Omer is equal to 3.64 liters. All right, 3.64 liters is equal to 3.64 liters, or 1 Omer, okay, is equal to 6.4 imperial pints. 1 Omer, which is equal to 3.64 liters, of course, then is equal to 3.2 imperial quarts. 1 imperial or pint is 20 ounces. 1 Omer equals 128 ounces. And we're going to see what happens, as, every day an Omer was counted. We're going to see what happens on the 27th day of the counting of the Omer when converted to imperial units. All right, and so this chart here is I marked off every single day 1 through 50. This is the counting of the Omer, and this number here represents the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, and there's certainly a lot more going on here, but I'm going to concentrate on the 27th day because it's what really stands out. When converted, all right, to the imperial system, or the British imperial system of measurements, and what the Omer is, it's a unit that's convertible, and when you do so, the very first day, and this margin here, these are all pints. Okay, so I've converted everything to pints, imperial pints on this side, and so the first day would be you'd have 6.4 pints. All right, and everything, because it's a liter, which is converted then into imperial pints. It's a liter is defined as a volume of a cube. All right, just as the volume of the New Testament, there's 27 volumes to the revelation of Jesus Christ as Messiah. And so we're going to see what happens here when we count down. Right here, this is what jumps out. Okay, and so this is the counting of the Omer on the 27th day of the counting. This is the converted units right here on the 27th day of the counting of the Omer into the imperial system. You have 17 or 172.8 pints, 86.4 quarts, 3, 4, 5, 6 ounces, and 216 pounds. All these numbers right here are fractals. This is a fractal, or a smaller scale of the volume of New Jerusalem, which is a cube. Everything here is what would be filling a cube. And so on the 27th day of the Omer, this is what you have right here when converted to a system that maybe we're a little more familiar with. So that's what happens, and all these numbers here show up astronomically, just at different scales, and I'll show you briefly. I'll get back to this one chart here in a minute. All right, so this is just one chart, and I've shown this one before. This is the 7/11/2010 eclipse on the 1st of Av, which there was a series of 3, and this was the last one. Again, we're progressing the moon. This is a new moon on a solar eclipse. We're progressing the moon 864 days, and you progress it to the first quarter moon, which is in the next phase of the moon in progression. And you have your first quarter moon, and this one happens to be splitting a fourth night with 2 eclipses. This is a lunar eclipse and this is a solar eclipse. It's just the same as what's happening over here on this chart, which I explained many times, that oftentimes, if I can find it, it's not always a solar and lunar eclipse by itself. It's oftentimes what's happening in the middle, and most of everything that I've seen, it's what's happening in the middle. Okay, it's like eating a Pop-Tart. It's not always what's on the outside, but it's what's on the inside. It's kind of like a Pop-Tart. And that's how I would describe it. You know, it's you have this date, which is it's splitting this fourth night, and these are two eclipses, lunar and solar. You know, and so it's what you have here is 864 days then to the Passover eclipse, or 1728. This is what it would be. 1728. Okay, at 1728, if you can read it, from here to here. Okay, it's just 864 plus 2, and again, it shows up here, just a different scale, 1728. You know, and this is if you were to remove the decimal point, this is 864. You know, the whole cycle of time here that we're dealing with is 864 months. Okay, this is the same chart that shows the overall time frame of the great year, which is 864 months. So all these things interplay with one another, and the 27th day of the Omer is the day that jumps out above all. Okay, and it was the day that Israel was admitted to the UN. It was the 27th day of the Omer. So these are the different breakdowns within the imperial system that would represent the volume or the measure of the Omer. Okay, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is this chart. Okay, so again, starting at May 10th through the 11th at sunset, this would have been the 27th day of the Omer. This was the day that Israel was accepted by the world body. And then on 5/8, which is 5/8/1949, which was exactly one biblical year, or one 360-day period from the creation of Israel as a nation, or their declaration of that on May 14th. Okay, it's this date is one prophetic year later, and from this date there's 3 days here, and so no matter how you measure this, because I realize this is a Gregorian date, and I'm going to be talking about this Passover date in 1933. This was obviously this 4/3, or April 3rd, or you could say 3 full months, 3 days, and 33 years. This was the Julian date. So no matter how you slice it, no matter how you divide it up, and this is what I said before, is one day, you know, within the Hebrew calendar system, one day has 25,920 units to it. 27 days, or the 27th day of the Omer, you'd have an accumulation of 699,840 units. That's what would make up on the 27th day of the Omer. That's how many units you would have. Okay, and that's exactly, if you count back in time, the same number. Okay, this is units, this is days, and again it's 27 times 25,920 is 699,840 days. Counting back from this period, okay, right here, counting back 27 cycles of great years, it takes you right here. Okay, these two dates line up with these two dates, and that's how it works. And so this is a larger scale than this. Again, this is 27 days is made up of this many units, and this is your day count. Again, and here's a cycle. You know, this is all interrelated, and it's no mistake here then, especially what happened here on 5/8. While there was no specific event that happened, this time it splits. And I've discussed it on different charts. Is that this was the splitting of time between the first armistice as a result of the War of Independence with Israel, with Egypt, and the last, which was Syria on 7/20/1949. This represents the center point. This is the center point. In Jordan, the armistice with Jordan is a reflection of this date. Okay, it happened on 4/3. And so my point is that neither Israel, Jordan, Egypt, it would be hard for me to believe that they would conspire, okay, to make this happen, because you deal with Muslim nations and a nation that rejected Yeshua as their Messiah. I hardly doubt that they set this up, conspired to prove a point. It just doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense here, because you have so many different players involved, and none of them, except Jesus Christ as their Messiah. You're talking about Muslim nations, and primarily a Jewish nation that rejected Jesus. Okay, why would they try to prove this? Okay, because that's exactly, it's beyond a reasonable doubt that what's happening here is all related to this. Okay, without a doubt. You can see it just in the day counts and how the Hebrew calendar is broken down into units. These are all astronomical numbers, and they're all interrelated. And so you could, the nation of Israel could thank Jesus Christ for what happened to them on this date, and they don't even know it, because like I said before, I hardly doubt that they were conspiring to make this happen, or there was any, the UN, I believe, has some very dark influences inside of it, and you could throw them in there as well, because they were probably part of this. So you have Israel's a nation, you have 4 Muslim countries, and the UN that has satanic leanings, for sure. I doubt that all of them were conspiring to make this happen. Okay, I highly doubt it. But yet, the reality of it is it all points to the work of God here, and I can't see it any other way. And when you start breaking it down, you start looking at different measures. And again, the New Testament is made up of, we're talking about volume here, and this is a liter. Okay, a liter is made up of as a cube, and everything, when converted to British imperial units, you start seeing these numbers on the 27th day of the county of the Omer. It's just a reflection, in many ways, of what's happening here and what's happening here. 864 months, 216 months. You can see it on the 27th day of the Omer. What happens? Okay, it's just a different scale, but we're talking about volume, among other things. But these are all also astronomical. Molads is part of the calendar system. It's a scientific measure, and so that's what's happening. And so there's a couple more charts I'd like to talk about. Hold on a minute. Again, speaking of actually the definition, all right, of the word volume. Okay, volume is a collection of written, printed sheets bound together in a book. Okay, the New Testament is a volume of 27. Okay, volume is also the amount of space occupied by a three-dimensional object or region. So whether we're talking about a liter or the county of the Omer, it's related to volume, and the revelation of Jesus Christ as Messiah is found within 27 volumes that make up the book, make up one book, and it's all interrelated. And